Someone is mowing their lawn and I've been waiting for them to stop, but it hasn't, so sorry if you can hear that in the background. Today's video is going to be about lunar tides in the color Blue Velvet. I have my swatches labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I'll be doing close-ups and pictures at the end, so the numbers are just to help us keep track throughout the video. 1 is red. I kind of wanted to see if it would turn purple. 2 is a gray. 3 is a natural red. 4 is black. And then from 4 to 11, we have a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. Something else to note, these are human hair, but they are not virgin hair. Except number 4. Number 4 will be the only virgin hair swatch, but the rest are not. I'm going to start by putting the dye directly from the container on the top of each swatch. And then some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I'll be putting a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch. Please keep in mind, everyone's hair is different, so everyone's hair will take dye differently, which means your hair may not turn out like my swatches do. So please just use my video as a reference as to what it could turn out like, but not, fact. Of course, it's always a good idea to do things like strand tests and a lot of research before dyeing your whole head of hair. For the diluted section, we're going to be doing a 1:8 ratio today. So that is 1 part of dye to 8 parts of diluter. If you're not sure what diluter is, the short answer is that it lightens the color of the dye. And if you are wondering, I always just use a plain white conditioner when diluting. I'm gonna let these sit for about 3 hours. I will rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here and we can do some comparisons. Overall, I would definitely say this is a pigmented dye. Number 4, the black swatch, is literally the only swatch that I don't see a difference in. Even number 5, you can kind of see the line of where it was diluted and the direct dye portion. I would say number 5 and 6, the dye basically made it look like a blackish color, possibly a blue-black in direct sunlight. In this lighting, the number 1 has a similar look. For the direct dye portion, doesn't really look as purple as I thought, or at least hoped it might look. But again, in direct sunlight, that might be different. I would say it actually starts to look blue from number 8 and onward. Number 7 is interesting. It does look kind of blue, but in dimmer lighting, it might not. It might just look like almost blackish as well, but not quite as dark as these. I don't know. I think it's kind of a weird in between. If we're referencing the diluted section, I definitely think number 11 and 12 look the best. And I will say for the direct eye portion, the 11 and 12 also look really, really good, but 9 and 10 don't look bad at all. I just think with number 11, you really get a good sense of it being a blue dye. I think there's just a little bit more dimension in number 11 versus like 10 and 9, but you can still tell that the hair is blue on these two. And then number 12 and number 2, of course they both look blue, but because there was less yellow in each swatch, they look a little bit more cool toned than the rest of the hair. Number 2 being the more cool tone of, you know, the two. I have 3 comparisons for us today. I'm gonna start with the least similar, and that's gonna be Good Dye Young in the color People Eater. This is comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11, 10, and 9. So from the jump, I thought People Eater looked more blue. Like when you open the container, it has a very, very blue look, but People Eater is meant to be a purple. So for anyone that felt like their People Eater was very blue as well, which in fact, I dyed my husband's hair with it, and some pieces, like his ends turned purple, but the mid shaft turned blue. But after my swatches have been, you know, dried out after being dyed, I do feel like they look a little bit more purple than the actual dye itself, but it is a very, very cool tone purple. And like I said, it can turn blue on some people's hair. The next comparison I wanted to do was the Directions dye in the color Midnight. So this is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. So the Lunar Tides Blue Velvet on the direct dye portion does have a very, very cool toned look to it, but as you dilute it, you can see it's very much more of like it's a more greeny blue. Not super green, of course, but there is definitely some green with that blue. But it still holds this, like, even though it's a deeper dye, it's still kind of bright and maybe saturated is the word I'm looking for. And then you look at Directions Midnight, and even as you go down on the diluted section, the whole thing is very cool toned. And I think what they did is they made the direct dye obviously a more smoky blue, so that when it fades, it kind of combats the yellow in the hair. So with Blue Velvet, I don't know how it fades, of course, but yellow and blue make green. So as Blue Velvet gets lighter, the blue on top of the yellow kind of creates a bluish green look. And like I said, because the Directions dye, the Midnight, is a little bit more smoky, even on the number 9 swatch, this doesn't turn out as green looking. And I would say on the direct dye portion, you kind of can see that. There may even be a little bit more purple in the Midnight as well. So on the direct dye portion, they are similar, but not exactly the same. Blue Velvet, I don't know how to describe it properly. I guess it almost looks like it shines blue a little bit more. Whereas the Directions, you can tell it's blue, but because of that smokiness, it's just a little more muted looking. And then last but not least, we're gonna do Manic Panic, but we're gonna do a mixture that I did. Manic Panic has a huge range of colors, but I did After Midnight, and I expected After Midnight to actually look a lot like this, but it turned out a little bit lighter and a little bit closer to this like almost greenish blue. So I did a video mixing it with Ultraviolet, and in my opinion, that looks a lot more similar to this, the direct dye portion, so I wanted to compare that. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, and number 10. So I believe that the top half of the mixture will have a little bit more After Midnight, and the bottom will be a little bit more Ultraviolet. And from what I can tell, it looks to me like the top half is a little bit more similar, but they are pretty close. I think this one's similar, but it's a little bit lighter than the Blue Velvet. And the part with After Midnight does pull a little bit darker, so I'd have to say they're the most similar. To me, it does look like Blue Velvet is just a touch more cool toned, but not quite as cool toned as this portion here. But honestly, if you already have After Midnight and Ultraviolet and you like this color, mixing those two together would get a very, very similar result. So now I would like to get into the before and afters. I do film the before and afters and any pictures you see at the end in natural lighting, but I'm sure, as you know, recreating the exact same environment with natural lighting can be very difficult, so if anything looks slightly different, that is probably why. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that do not test on animals. I did recently join the Amazon affiliate program. Now I can't find everything legit from each brand, but at the very least I will have the swatches linked below and possibly the dyes as well. Thank you so much to my patrons and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.